You're listening to Inspire Me with Jay, where science meets spirit and stories of meditation and the near-death experience awaken what's possible within us all. I'm Jay, and this is your moment to be inspired. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, Jay Spillers, and we're going to be talking about what you can learn from death. And this has a very personal meaning to me because I just experienced the death. My dog Toby died. You may have seen his picture at the beginning of this video. He just died 2 days ago. I was supposed to have a guest on yesterday, but I just couldn't do it. But I thought I'd come on and I would talk about what can you learn from death. And these are actually things you can learn from studying the near-death experience or from meditation as well. One of the things I've learned from going through the death process with a loved one is most things we think that are important really aren't that important. You know, we tend to kind of exaggerate how important things are. You know, you go on social media and you'll see people, screaming and ranting about this, that, and the other thing. And, how important really is it in the bigger picture, in the bigger scheme of things? Will it be relevant a year from now, 5 years from now? Probably not. And it's like, even if there is a level of importance there, how much of it is exaggerated? How much of it is kind of hyped beyond its true importance? And we kind of see that in life in general, that we think this thing is happening or that thing is happening. This person said that to me. And we just sort of hype it. We sort of exaggerate what it means to us. And so one of the things to learn is that most things are not that important. And even if they are important, they're usually not as important as you've probably made them out to be in your mind. So don't sweat things so much. Don't blow things out of proportion. Don't make things more important than what they are. And I think another thing that goes along with this is what I would call the negativity trap, that we tend to see everything through the negative. And this is another thing that's illustrated on social media like Facebook. Everything is filtered through a lens of negativity. The sky is falling. We're all going to be doomed. The economy is going to collapse. World War III is around the corner. They're going to do this to us in the government. They're going to do that. And we're going to have, totalitarianism. Or maybe we already do. And, maybe it's Germany 1933. Or, maybe we're like on the verge of becoming like the Soviet Union or whatever, And we get in these negativity traps and we start to allow ourselves to become depressed, stressed, and anxious, often about things that haven't even happened, that probably, in all likelihood, aren't going to happen, which is never to say that bad things can't happen, because they can, and obviously, Nazi Germany happened, the Soviet Union happened, all these things happened, but we live our lives in fear of what might be. And in most cases, it doesn't even happen. And we just end up depleting ourselves, depriving ourselves, worrying about things that haven't even happened, allowing ourselves to be enveloped in negativity. And not only do we get stressed, depressed, and anxious, but we allow ourselves to become angry and we start to exaggerate how bad things really are, or how bad these people or those people are, because I can I can tell you almost for certain that, like, look in the political arena, MAGA, the right, those people are not as bad as you probably think they are. The people on the left, the Democrats, they're not as bad as you think they are, especially as it relates to, rank and file people, your people in your neighborhood, people in your community, people that are just normal people, that they're probably in most cases not as bad as you think. And even where people are sort of wrapped up in self-importance and going around saying and doing really awful things, they're only reacting because they're in that ultra negative mindset that if they were to able to think more clearly, they probably would behave differently than what they are. It's like people that, do atrocious things. Look at like the conflict right now with ICE. There's been some horror stories out there, and there's been some really bad things that's happened with ICE agents. And then of course there's been horror stories with protesters, and them. You can go online and you can find all kinds of horrible things that they say and that spew from their mouth, and just the venom, and happening on all sides. And you think, were they not in a negative situation, where they're allowing negativity to just fuel them, to envelop them, to allow them to become stressed, depressed, angry, and all of that, would they behave differently? And then the answer is probably overwhelmingly, in most cases, yes. So avoid the negativity trap. Avoid seeing things more important than what they really are. And another thing too is, let me pull my list out here. I had some notes here. Let's see. That's my to-do list. But I've written this down. Besides the negativity, and avoiding the importance is, what else can death teach you? What else can it teach you besides avoiding negativity, avoiding overimportance of this, that, or the other? The importance of forgiveness. That was the other one, is that we want to be able to forgive. When someone passes, whether it's a pet or a person, oftentimes we have regrets. We're like, we should have done this, that, or the other thing. We should have said this. We should have been there. We should have whatever. And we can be enveloped in this thing where we're not able to forgive ourselves. And that can really be hard. Like, if your pet was sick, for example, Toby, should we have done more? Should we have been more proactive? Should we have tried to be there more for him as he was passing, or just before, or whatever? And we can play all these things in our mind, and did we give them a good enough quality of life towards the end? And and we can do this with people too, like, I should have said this, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I didn't. But it's like, at some point you have to just let go of that, to realize something, that were you perfect in how you reacted with them, how you treated them, how you everything you did with them? Probably not, but nobody ever is. And it's okay, because none of us are perfect, and none of us are going to respond perfectly. If you had a heart of love for that person, for that pet, you probably did pretty good. You probably did, in some cases, very good. But you were probably pretty good at least. And from the vantage point of where that person is or where that pet is in the other dimension, in the other realm, the afterlife, heaven, the chances are they don't hold anything against you anyway, because they're now experiencing perfect bliss, perfect peace. And if like their person, they've already had their life review, they're able to see everything, with perfect understanding. And so nothing is being held against you. The only one that's upset at themselves right now, if you are, is you, because that person, that pet, is not upset. So you just need to come to the place where you're forgiving yourself. Let go. Know that it was okay. And sometimes, like in my meditation today, I was thinking about that, and I kind of just allowed my higher self to filter in, like the pets talking to me and different things like that, people, that it was okay, that I was forgiven. And I think at some level, the emotions of that pet were filtered through, and I could feel like, oh, well, it's okay. And I think there really was a connection to those pets, because there was actually more than just Toby. There was Skippy, and there was Quasi, and I thought, well, it's really okay. I felt like I could feel the emotions from them, and another dog, Goldie, but it was okay, I mean, I kind of knew it was okay, but it's like I really felt it now. I allowed myself to feel it, feel the forgiveness within myself. So forgiveness is important. Recognizing that most things are not that important or as important as you think. Avoiding the negativity trap. Forgiving yourself. And then a fourth thing to do in terms of what to learn with death is calmness. To just basically step back and step outside yourself. Give yourself a space to breathe, to be calm. And in the calmness, in the stillness, you can find a great deal of freedom. You can feel connection. You can feel a proper perspective on things, because it's like when you're able to step back from things, you're able to see things in a more reflective way. You're able to get a different perspective on it, and sometimes even like, going back to ICE and immigration, one side's like, abolish ICE, and ICE is the most evil thing in the world. And then the other side is, ICE is wonderful, and, these people are the terrorists over here, and, everything's great. But maybe there's a middle ground that when you're calm, you can kind of see, is there a place for immigration laws? Well, yeah, I mean, people coming into the country, you want a certain level of vetting. You want to make sure that they're not criminals, they don't have a criminal background, that they don't have a communicable disease. and that they have good intentions, that they want to work and be productive and be a positive member of society. And of course, a fourth thing is, not taking in more than you have resources to, comfortably accommodate, because it'd be like, we can't take in the whole world because we don't have enough resources, right? So it's kind of those four things, but there's a vetting process. So we need to have, at least in this short term, we need to have things called borders, and we need to have a vetting process for those coming in, because we live in a very imperfect world, and so those things they're necessary. And there has to be consequences for people that just kind of, sneak in, that don't go through the vetting process. But at the same time, maybe we need to have a streamlining and reform to our immigration laws, where, if you meet those four qualifications, you can be, and we have resources and whatnot, you can be streamlined in, and become legal resident, ultimately a citizen. And maybe there's a process for those that have been here many years that, are here not legally and have not been vetted to come forward. If they've been here many years, they're working, being productive members of society, and they don't have, they haven't committed any crimes or anything. Maybe there's a process where they can make amends, pay a fine, community service, and obtain some kind of legal status and work through the process, of becoming a citizen or legal resident, And maybe like with ICE is, okay, abolishing ICE doesn't really make sense because, who's going to enforce immigration laws? Somebody's got to do it. So yeah, just saying abolish ICE is kind of silly. It's not realistic. The person's not being realistic when they say things like that. But maybe there needs to be some good reforms in ICE, and that might be increasing the training process and vetting candidates who come into ICE better, and providing better resources and training and things like that. I mean, I heard that they reduced the level of training that ICE agents were getting, when Trump came in, which is not a good thing. Maybe we need to increase the standards, and not saying anybody automatically has to be fired that was just recently hired, but, maybe we need to send them through some more training, some de-escalation processes, some better coping skills, with the stress and anxiety that comes with that job, especially now. And of course, one thing I always say is, start to incorporate meditation into it. Because they've had various local police departments that have started to introduce meditation, different meditation programs in, and have found that it's very positive, because meditation can help to relieve stress, anxiety, and depression. It can help you to find the inner calm and peace. It can help you to think through situations, and basically helps you to de-escalate it in itself. Besides learning certain de-escalation techniques, it can be a very positive thing. So, I mean, yeah, all law enforcement could benefit from more meditation programs, whether it's your local police, ICE, FBI, those that are in the corrections, whatever. All law enforcement could benefit from it. And quite honestly, those in prison and jail also find a great deal of benefit where meditation has been introduced there as well. So like virtually everybody can be helped through meditation. The schools, the hospitals, the prisons, the law enforcement, you name it, the military, anybody can benefit from meditation programs. So, I'm a firm believer in that as a meditation teacher. And I've seen different articles on the research that's gone on with this, and it's very positive for all segments of society to get into meditation. So, and when you are able to achieve that calmness and you're able to see, okay, the world is very imperfect, the world does have a lot of problems, there are real challenges, rather than respond with profound negativity and then going into anger, they're going into my stress about it and my exaggeration about it, and my sort of blockers, because I'm focused on an issue, but that's all I see is the issue. I don't see that there's other issues out there. Rather than doing any of that, I approach everything with love and kindness. That, we need more people like the peace walkers that are out there walking for peace than we need for protesters, breaking in the churches and interrupting the service. We need more people in soup kitchens than we need people, barricading themselves on the roadway where cars can't, drive to and fro. We need more people to sit down and dialogue rather than yelling and screaming at each other, in protest lines and all of that, and attacking each other. We need people to sit down and say, okay, well, how can we reasonably come up with better solutions, rather than one extreme or the other, I think approaching it with love and with kindness is where we need to go on pretty much everything. And when you experience a death, if you can start to begin to see purpose, every life has purpose. Every person has purpose, has dignity, has value. And every pet, because we're talking about pets too, has a purpose that they serve in your life, has a value and a dignity that they bring into your life. And, this is what you can see with death, and this is like what the near-death experience can teach you, that your pet crossed paths with you because they had something to give you, they had something to show you. And it can be as simple as, I was able to experience greater love, greater compassion, greater empathy by having this pet in my life for the time that I did. And people may be the same way, there could be a lot of other lessons too. But if nothing else, to learn the value of empathy and compassion is a great purpose that all of us bring, and that our loved ones, pet or people, can bring into our lives. So there's 6 great lessons for you. Don't make things more important than what they really are. Get proper perspective. Don't fall into negativity. Forgive. Forgive yourself, and if you have anything against them, forgive them too, but especially forgive yourself. Find that inner calmness. Step back, find a safe space, find that inner calmness. Respond to your world with love and compassion. See the purpose that your loved one had for you, and see the purpose for yourself, because you have purpose too. There's a reason why you're in other people's lives. There's a reason why you were in the life of your pet. And of course, one of those purposes, love, compassion. And so we'll close with that, but I thank you for joining me.